Most people think about survival the wrong way. They imagine empty store shelves. They picture long lines and bare freezers. They assume the danger begins when food disappears. But that is not how a real crisis unfolds. The shelves can still be stocked when things begin to fall apart. Your pantry can be full when your foundation starts cracking. The most perilous moment in any prolonged disruption is not the day food runs out. It is the day you realize what you have stored cannot carry you for 30 more days. Real crises do not begin with hunger. They begin with income loss, a job gone, a paycheck delayed, a business that quietly stops generating revenue. When household income drops by 20 to 30%, meals do not change overnight. You simply start making smaller adjustments. You choose a cheaper cut of meat. You reduce portion sizes. You tell yourself things will stabilize soon. And then, by the time you understand the full picture, rebuilding your food supply from zero has become too expensive to do all at once. There is another truth most people overlook. The majority of supermarket food is designed for one purpose: convenience. It is not designed for endurance. It is not structured around long-term survival. Today, I want to speak plainly. If your household faced a 3 to 6 month disruption, whether from economic pressure, natural disaster, or infrastructure failure, only a specific group of foods would genuinely carry you through. Everything else creates the feeling of security without the substance of it. I will also share a bonus category that most survival guides completely ignore. Stay with me through the full list. And if you are over 50 and want calm, clear preparation guidance, not fear-based content, not panic buying advice, subscribe to this channel. Everything here is grounded in what actually sustains a human body and a functioning household. Let us begin. #7 Apple cider vinegar, the overlooked stabilizer. Before we reach the core 6, I want to mention something very few survival guides discuss. Apple cider vinegar does not provide calories. It does not replace a meal, but it performs several quiet functions that become important when dietary disruption stretches across weeks or months. When you are eating a simplified diet, primarily grains, legumes, and stored fats, digestive function becomes your first vulnerability. Older adults are particularly susceptible to this. Reduced dietary variety disrupts the microbial balance in the gut. Fermented liquids help maintain that balance. A tablespoon of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar diluted in water before a meal helps stimulate digestive acid production. For many people over 50, stomach acid decreases with age. When you shift abruptly to a high-fiber, legume-heavy diet, your system can struggle to process it efficiently. This is not just discomfort. Poor digestion under stress reduces nutrient absorption. You can eat adequate amounts and still not extract what your body needs. Apple cider vinegar is also shelf-stable for years. No refrigeration, no preparation required. A single bottle is inexpensive and takes up almost no storage space. In a longer disruption, it can also serve as a mild food preservative when refrigeration is unavailable. Acidic environments inhibit bacterial growth. A diluted brine using vinegar can extend the usability of certain vegetables by several days. Small item, quiet benefit, easy to overlook, exactly the type of thing that matters most when everything is simplified. #6 Iodized salt, the mineral that regulates everything. Most people consider salt a seasoning. They keep a small container near the stove. They never think about running out. That is a dangerous assumption. Let me explain what salt actually does inside the human body. Then you will understand why it belongs at the foundation of any serious preparation plan. The human body maintains a narrow and precise balance of sodium in the bloodstream. When that balance is disrupted, whether through excessive sweating, drinking large amounts of plain water without replacing electrolytes, or physical exertion in cold conditions, the body begins to fail rapidly. When blood sodium drops below 135 millimoles per liter, you have entered a state called hyponatremia. The symptoms include confusion, dizziness, and irregular heartbeat. For adults over 50, this progression can happen faster and with greater severity than in younger people. The critical window is short. Electrolyte imbalance can incapacitate a person within 24 to 48 hours. This is not a slow decline. This is a rapid shutdown of multiple bodily systems simultaneously. Consider what happens during a severe winter storm. Power fails, temperatures drop. The body burns significantly more energy just to maintain core temperature. Physical tasks clearing snow, carrying firewood, reinforcing a structure increase sweat loss dramatically. If you are drinking water to stay hydrated, which is the correct instinct, but replacing nothing else, you are diluting the sodium in your blood with every glass. A hospital in the southern United States once admitted an older man following several days without power. He had consumed sufficient water. He was not experiencing hunger. He had no access to electrolytes. He collapsed from internal imbalance, not from starvation. Iodized salt specifically carries an additional benefit. The iodine component supports healthy thyroid function. The thyroid regulates body temperature and metabolic rate, two systems under direct stress during cold weather disruptions. Globally, iodine deficiency still affects approximately 2 billion people. Its effects do not arrive suddenly, they accumulate gradually. Reduced mental clarity, impaired temperature regulation, reduced ability to adapt to physical and environmental stress. Beyond its internal function, salt serves as a preservation tool. When refrigeration fails, meat, fish, and fresh vegetables begin to degrade within 24 to 48 hours, depending on ambient temperature. Salt curing and brining can extend the usability of protein sources by 2 to 3 additional days. In a disruption, that extension can be the difference between waste and sustainability. Salt also carries genuine barter value in a broken supply system. It is lightweight, easily divided, universally needed, and requires no electricity or refrigeration. It does not degrade when stored correctly. A sealed container kept dry has no meaningful expiration. Store more salt than you think you need. It weighs almost nothing. It costs almost nothing. And without it, your entire system is incomplete. #5 Peanut butter. Dense fuel for the long haul. If you ask most people what their body needs most during a crisis, they will say protein. Some will say carbohydrates. Very few will say fat. That is the gap where real suffering begins. Fat is the most misunderstood macronutrient in modern nutritional thinking. For decades, it was blamed for everything. People reduced it, replaced it, avoided it. But fat is not optional for a functioning human body. It is foundational. There is a documented historical phenomenon known as rabbit starvation. Hunters in early North America sometimes survived for weeks on lean game meat, primarily rabbit. They had enough food by caloric estimate. They were not technically starving, but they deteriorated anyway. Diarrhea, fatigue, progressive weakness. Their bodies were consuming adequate protein and some carbohydrates, but almost no fat. The body cannot sustain itself on protein and carbohydrates alone for extended periods. Fat is necessary for the production of hormones, testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, and thyroid hormones. It is required for the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. Approximately 60% of the brain's structural composition is lipid-based. When fat intake drops severely, the brain does not fail immediately. It slows. Mood becomes unstable. Memory becomes less reliable. Fatigue increases even when caloric intake seems adequate. For adults over 50, fat deficiency accelerates the hormonal decline already occurring naturally with age. This directly affects bone density and muscle maintenance. Carbohydrates provide fast energy. Fat provides slow, sustained, reliable energy. During cold conditions, when the body must work continuously to maintain warmth, that distinction matters enormously. 1 tablespoon of peanut butter contains approximately 190 to 200 calories. A standard 16-ounce jar holds nearly 3,000 calories. No cooking required, no electricity, no refrigeration, ready to consume directly. A viewer once shared this in the comments. She ate several spoonfuls of peanut butter each morning before shoveling snow following a prolonged power outage. It was the only thing, she said, that kept her from complete exhaustion before noon. That is not anecdote. That is the physiology of fat metabolism functioning under stress conditions. In historical disruptions, butter, lard, and cooking oil have consistently disappeared from markets faster than grains. Carbohydrates can be grown in a season. Stable fat that stores well without turning rancid is difficult to maintain in quantity. When choosing peanut butter for storage, select the simplest available formulation, peanuts and salt only. Avoid versions with added hydrogenated oils or high quantities of sugar. Store in a cool, dark location. Rotate stock regularly within the 1 to 2 year shelf life window. Fat does not allow you to die dramatically. It allows you to fade slowly. And in a crisis that stretches across weeks, fading slowly is the outcome you cannot afford. If this information is helping you think more clearly about preparation, take a moment right now to like this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe if you have not already. This channel is built around calm, clear guidance, not panic, not fear, just what actually works. Hit that subscribe button and join thousands of others who are choosing preparation over anxiety. #4 Whole wheat berries. Stability you can store for decades. Bread has a unique psychological weight in human civilization. This is not sentiment, this is history. In the years preceding the French Revolution, bread prices consumed nearly half of a working family's daily income. When supply contracted and prices rose sharply, the response was not simply hunger. It was the collapse of social trust. People did not lose faith in their government because they missed luxury goods. They lost faith because the most basic, expected component of a normal meal had become inaccessible. Throughout modern history, researchers have noted a consistent pattern. When global grain prices rise sharply by 30 to 40%, political unrest tends to follow in vulnerable regions shortly after. The connection is not just economic, it is psychological. Foundational foods carry foundational meaning. This is why whole wheat berries belong in any serious preparation system. The distinction between whole wheat berries and packaged flour is critical. Milled flour has a shelf life of roughly 6 to 12 months under typical conditions. Whole wheat berries, the intact grain kernels stored, dry, sealed in low oxygen conditions, can remain viable and nutritionally sound for 25 to 30 years. The kernel's outer bran layer protects the germ and endosperm from oxidation. When you grind the kernel at home, you receive a fresh, nutritionally complete flour. You are not working with a pre-processed ingredient that has been sitting in a warehouse for months, losing nutritional value before it ever reached a store shelf. 1 cup of dry wheat berries provides approximately 600 to 650 calories. The combination of complex carbohydrates and plant-based protein makes it a genuinely complete caloric source. But its most important value is not numerical, it is structural. When a crisis extends beyond 72 hours, the family's psychological stability becomes as important as its caloric intake. The brain requires approximately 120 grams of glucose daily to function at full capacity. When foundational carbohydrate intake drops, cognitive performance declines. Decision-making slows. Emotional regulation becomes harder. When a family can still eat bread in the morning, the nervous system registers a signal of continuity. Things are still recognizable. Routine still exists. This signal is not trivial. It directly supports clear thinking under pressure. A viewer once wrote to say that during an extended power outage, her family felt more unsettled by the absence of bread than by the absence of meat. The meat was expected to disappear. The bread was supposed to always be there. That is exactly the psychological role whole wheat berries protect. Store them in sealed, food-grade containers. Add oxygen absorbers to extend viability further. A hand-cranked grain mill requires no electricity and can be purchased for less than the cost of a week's groceries. The independence this creates from the industrial milling system, from delivery trucks, from retail supply chains, cannot be overstated in a prolonged disruption. #3 Rolled oats. Fuel efficiency when energy is your most limited resource. Every survival conversation eventually reaches the same underestimated bottleneck. Not food quantity, fuel. In a prolonged power outage, the food itself is often the easier problem to solve. The harder problem is cooking it. Rice requires 15 to 20 minutes of sustained heat. Most dried beans require 30 to 45 minutes or more, even after soaking. Meat requires thorough cooking. Every minute of cooking represents a diminishing supply of propane, firewood, or backup power. When the fuel runs out, food that requires cooking becomes inert weight. Rolled oats change that calculation entirely. With just 2 to 3 minutes of exposure to boiling water, oats are ready to eat. In truly minimal conditions, soaking them overnight in cold water and consuming them in the morning requires no heat at all. No gas, no fire, no electricity. This is not simply convenience. In a system where every resource must be rationed carefully, oats reduce the daily fuel demand. That reduction extends your entire preparation timeline. Physiologically, oats offer something important beyond caloric density. Their complex carbohydrate structure releases glucose slowly into the bloodstream. There is no sharp spike followed by a crash. For people managing blood sugar, which includes a significant percentage of adults over 50, this consistency is medically meaningful, not just comfortable. When sleep is reduced, stress is elevated, and physical demands are higher than normal, the last thing a functioning decision maker needs is unstable blood energy. Sharp glucose swings impair focus and slow reaction time. Oats prevent those swings. A warm bowl of oatmeal in the morning accomplishes something subtle but important. It preserves routine. And in a crisis, preserved routine is preserved cognitive function. A viewer once described a 4-day blackout with her family. The detail she remembered most was this. Every morning, despite the disruption, they ate oatmeal. It made each day feel structured. It made her children feel like things were still manageable. That bowl of oatmeal was not just nutrition. It was evidence of continuing normalcy. Store rolled oats in sealed containers, away from moisture. Kept properly, they maintain quality for several years. They combine well with other stored items, a spoonful of peanut butter, a drizzle of honey, a handful of dried fruit, making them nutritionally flexible without requiring complex preparation. From a pure efficiency standpoint, oats deliver high caloric return for minimal fuel investment. In any situation where you are calculating every resource carefully, efficiency is not a preference. It is a strategy. #2 Dried beans, protecting the body's ability to repair itself. Short-term crisis is a caloric problem. Long-term crisis is a protein problem. The distinction matters enormously, particularly for adults over 50. The body can tolerate a significant reduction in caloric intake for days, even weeks, drawing on fat reserves for energy. But when protein intake drops below functional levels, a different process begins. The body starts breaking down muscle tissue to meet its own needs. Grip strength declines, immune function weakens, recovery from minor injuries slows. These changes are not dramatic, they are gradual. Each week, a person in protein deficiency simply feels slightly weaker than the week before, slightly slower, slightly more vulnerable. By the time the pattern becomes obvious, significant damage has already occurred. For adults over 50, muscle loss under protein stress can accelerate at twice the rate experienced by younger people. The consequences are direct: reduced balance, reduced independence, increased vulnerability to falls and infections. The clinical minimum protein requirement for an adult is approximately 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight daily. Many specialists in geriatric health recommend higher targets for adults over 50 to counteract age-related muscle loss. For a 70-kilogram adult, that is at minimum 56 grams of protein per day, a significant quantity when refrigerated protein sources are unavailable. Dried beans address this problem at the structural level. 1 cup of cooked beans provides 12 to 15 grams of protein. They also deliver soluble fiber, which stabilizes blood glucose and supports digestive health, both areas of particular importance for older adults under dietary stress. Dried beans require no cold chain. They do not spoil when the power goes out. Stored dry and properly sealed, they maintain viability and nutritional quality for 20 to 30 years. No freezer, no refrigeration, no electricity. During the first weeks of the 2020 pandemic lockdowns, dried beans were among the first items to disappear from grocery shelves globally, not because of trend or advertising, because human instinct, under uncertainty, moves toward what endures. Beans also carry a specific amino acid advantage. They are rich in lysine, an essential amino acid that grains lack in meaningful quantities. When beans and rice are consumed together, their amino acid profiles complement each other. The combination creates a near-complete protein structure, one that has sustained population health across Asia, Latin America, and Africa for centuries. Not as a backup plan, as the actual foundation. Yes, beans require more fuel than oats. They require soaking. They require cooking time. But within the system being built here, each food serves its specific purpose. Oats maintain the morning. Wheat maintains structure. Peanut butter delivers dense fat energy. Beans prevent the slow internal erosion that occurs when protein is absent. A viewer once reflected that after 2 weeks of a lockdown, his pantry was full of packaged snack foods. He never felt nourished. The day he prepared a meal of rice and beans, something shifted. He felt, in his own words, solid again. That solidity is not psychological. It is the biological response to receiving what the body actually needs. You are still with me. That tells me something. You take this seriously. If you are finding value in this content, please take 5 seconds right now. Like this video, leave a comment, even just the word ready, so I know this is reaching people who need it. And if you have not subscribed yet, do it now. This channel will not shout at you. It will simply help you think clearly about what matters. Haitian white rice, the anchor that holds everything together. If you were told tomorrow that you could retain only one food category in your home, only one, and everything else had to go, what would survive that decision? Across centuries and civilizations, across geographies and cultures, the answer has consistently pointed toward one answer: rice. Not because rice is the most nutritious food available, not because it is the most delicious or the most satisfying, but because it is the most stable, the most predictable, and the most universally effective foundation that sustained human civilization has ever identified. A 25-kilogram sack of white rice contains approximately 80,000 to 90,000 calories. At an average consumption of 2,000 calories per day, that single sack provides more than 40 days of energy for one adult. With portions carefully managed, it can extend further. It requires no refrigeration, It contains no additives that degrade over time. White rice, stored in sealed, dry, low-oxygen conditions, has a validated shelf life of 25 to 30 years. No other common food offers that combination of caloric density, storage simplicity, and longevity. In recent years, there have been periods when major rice-producing nations restricted exports to protect domestic supply during periods of global market volatility. A single government policy decision can tighten international supply within weeks. What appears to be the most common, most abundant, most accessible food on Earth can become scarce surprisingly quickly when the system is under stress. Foundational carbohydrates serve a critical metabolic function. When the body is deprived of adequate carbohydrate intake over time, it first draws on stored glycogen, then begins breaking down fat, and eventually begins catabolizing muscle tissue for glucose. Without a reliable carbohydrate base, every protein and fat you have stored becomes harder to utilize efficiently. Rice is the anchor that allows everything else in the system to function as intended. It combines with beans to create near-complete protein. It combines with salt to support electrolyte balance during physical activity. It combines with peanut butter to create a dense caloric meal requiring no cooking beyond the rice itself. It combines with oats and wheat to provide the dietary variety that prevents nutritional fatigue. Rice does not attempt to be a complete food. It does not need to be. It performs one function with extraordinary reliability. It prevents the body from collapsing while everything else works to maintain health and function. In crisis situations, the most valuable systems are not the most complex. They are the most reliable. Rice offers something that variety and novelty cannot: absolute predictability. You know how many calories are in a cup. You know how long a sack will last. You can plan around it. You can make decisions based on it. That capacity for precise calculation and planning is itself a survival asset. When external conditions are chaotic, the ability to measure, predict, and structure your household's food consumption provides a form of control that reduces psychological stress considerably. There is also the matter of cultural and psychological resonance. In the regions of the world where rice has been the dietary foundation for generations across East Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and significant portions of Latin America and Africa, its absence is not experienced as mere inconvenience. It is experienced as the removal of order itself. When rice remains on the table, the household retains its sense of structure. When structure remains, decision-making improves. When decisions improve, outcomes improve. That is not a small thing. In a prolonged disruption, the quality of daily decisions made under stress directly determines whether a household navigates difficulty or collapses under it. An intact sack of rice in the corner of your storage space is worth more, in functional terms, than a refrigerator full of items counting down to expiration. One waits patiently. The other demands constant attention and eventually fails regardless. Bringing the system together. Let us step back and look at what has been assembled here. Salt maintains the body's internal balance. Without it, the system fails within days. Fat provides dense, sustained energy and supports hormone production, brain function, and thermal endurance. Whole wheat berries create the structural, psychological foundation of a normal meal across a 25-year storage window. Oats reduce the daily fuel burden and provide stable blood glucose that supports clear thinking. Dried beans protect muscle tissue, immune function, and the body's capacity to repair itself. Rice anchors the entire caloric structure. Apple cider vinegar quietly supports digestive adaptation and provides a mild preservation function when fresh food is at risk. None of these foods are glamorous. None of them photograph well for social media. None of them signal wealth or sophistication. But every single one of them performs a specific, non-duplicable function within a system designed for genuine resilience. The purpose of this system is not comfort. It is not variety. It is not to replicate the experience of normal grocery shopping. The purpose is to keep you functional, thinking clearly, physically stable, and in control of your household's well-being for 3 to 6 months without depending on a supply chain that may not be reliable. One final thought. Preparation is not about fear. People who prepare out of fear tend to panic buy randomly, store things they cannot actually use, and freeze in indecision when real pressure arrives. Calm preparation is different. It is methodical. It is based on understanding what the body actually needs and why. It is built slowly, intentionally, and without drama. The people who navigate disruption most effectively are not the ones with the most elaborate systems. They are the ones who understood the fundamentals in advance, who built their household's capacity quietly before it was urgent, who did not have to make panic decisions in crowded stores because those decisions had already been made. When crisis arrives, and at some point, in some form, it arrives for everyone, you will not have time to start from the beginning. You will work with what is already in your kitchen. At that point, what determines whether you remain stable or begin to unravel is not how much food you have stacked in a pantry. It is whether you understood the system well enough to build the right foundation. Salt, peanut butter, wheat, oats, beans, rice. 6 categories. 1. Coherent system. A household that can endure. If this video helped you see preparation differently, not as fear, but as calm competence, please do 3 things before you leave. Like this video so the platform helps it reach more people who need this information. Leave a comment telling me which of these 6 surprised you most, and subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. I am building out a full guide on preventing muscle loss after 50 during dietary disruption. If you want that video, leave the word muscle in the comments and I will prioritize it. Thank you for watching.